What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing a post-trade deadline to 2-round 2025 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. Below my face is my board. It is pretty much fully up to date apart from, well, one positional group that I'm going to be dropping a video with either tomorrow or the next day. The video is already recorded. It might be the most valuable position in the entire NFL. But let's get on into this. Of course, go to that link tree. You can go into, I direct you to two different places, which are just 2 clicks away. First off, UnderDog Fantasy, sponsor the show. You guys get to get up to $1,000 for free in bonus cash when you sign up, but it also sends me $60. Looks good on the brand, but actually they're very fun to use. Not just for football, literally for any sport. I love it to death. Honestly, it would be quite fun if they ended up adding like a Politico or whatever the hell, like poly market thing in there. Can you imagine? That'd be insane. Being able to bet on politics as well as sports on that app, but we'll see if we can get that in the future. That would be just very entertaining. I digress. It's election day. Hopefully you guys have gone out there and voted, had a good time. That wasn't a long ass wait. I voted early, so we're going to do that. But also go to the X page because I ended up posting a lot of all 22 clips there that I can't post here. Let's get into this. New England Patriots at number 1. So the question is, do you give up? By the way, no trades. Do you give up on Jalen Polk? If the answer is yes, then you go Travis Hunter because he's going to be a wide receiver. That just is what it is. Breaks my heart because I think Travis Hunter might be a better defensive back than he is a receiver, but it is what it is. I think Travis Hunter is a fantastic player, but I do think him, Pop Douglas, and then you could talk about Jalen Polk. He's struggled this year. I think Javon Baker is going to be a big addition as of next year. They're kind of using him in special team role. That's where my head's at. Because you could talk about like next round left tackle, and there's some good options there, potentially. But the problem is I don't think anybody's worth the first overall pick. I love Will Campbell. He still is not worth the first overall pick. So I do think I will take the higher likelihood option, which is Travis Hunter. Wide receiver is possible to go at number 1 overall. Again, I'd personally trade out. At number 2 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're going to be going Will Johnson immediately. Will Johnson's the best player I've studied in this class. He is just so dynamic, and he's been dealing with knee injuries, and he's still damn good. That's the best thing about Will Johnson. So, Will Johnson, the Jaguars need it. Again, we could go after offensive line, but I do think that the return on investment of a true lockdown corner 1, or you can talk about corner 2 if you really love Tyson Campbell that much, and I do love Tyson Campbell, but Will Johnson is just special to me. Don't give up on special players just to get better value. So, at number 3, we have the New Orleans Saints, and it's kind of crazy that they're here. I know the Saints fans actually got all on me in the preseason time. So where you at now, motherfucker? But it actually sucks. I actually like the New Orleans Saints. I have a pair of shoes that are New Orleans Saints themed. True story. I might have bought it because I was going to New Orleans, but we can ditch that part of the story. I think that there's a couple areas of improvement for New Orleans. Edge rusher, wide receiver, and then, of course, you can look at the offensive line. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, especially with the trade back, that you could end up getting one of these offensive linemen and moving him to right tackle. I know Trevor Penning hasn't been atrocious the way he has been before. He hasn't been great either. So, still definitely in the market for an upgrade. Will Campbell right down the road could be a really good addition to bring in. And there's not really a big risk because interior offensive line-wise, he can end up kicking into there as well. But I don't think the Saints are going to go back-to-back first rounds with offensive linemen. I also think Tali Fawaga had a higher ceiling than Will Campbell even did. So, it's going from 14, I believe, up to 3, not necessarily going to be someone that you want to necessarily downgrade in terms of talent. But I do think edge rusher is on the New Orleans Saints board. Chase Young, going to be somebody that you guys are potentially going to re-sign in the offseason. But I'm trying to think, was he on a 2-year deal? It's a 2 or a 1-year deal. Regardless, the future is very, very unknown. Cam Jordan isn't getting any younger. And that second edge position, I don't think is fully solved yet. And I think Abdul Carter is really special. So he's had a fantastic year. He literally gave one of my top 10 players at number 10 a 0.0 pass blocking grade when they ended up testing him at left tackle versus dude. I think Abdul Carter is going to be a super stud in the NFL, so don't sleep on him. At number 4 for the Carolina Panthers, people are saying there's no way that they can't go QB in the first round. I think there is, because I think Canales is really solid with working with quarterbacks to the point where I'm not necessarily threatened by the idea that I can't get a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But The question is, do you value the edge rushers more? With Abdul Carter on the board, I would say I'm going Abdul. I'd do it. Of course, you did end up trading away Mingo today. Could you end up trying to go after another receiver? Sure, but I don't think that's going to be a first round kind of issue. I think that as much as I want to say you don't need to go after that quarterback route, the edge rushers on the table don't entice me the same way that Abdul Carter, I think, would entice an offensive coach. I think Canales could certainly be the coach next year. I'd give him a continual shot because he's done it back-to-back places with being able to revamp quarterback careers. And based on that, I'm going to be going after the highest ceiling quarterback with, factoring in floor as well. That's going to be Cam Ward. At number 5 for the Cleveland Browns, it's going to be quarterback, it's going to be running back, or, well, I think that left tackle needs to be in consideration as well. But I do think quarterback probably going to be the more likely option. Like, it's just, will Daddy Sanders really be like, no, fuck no, you're not taking my son. Like, I'm not sending him to Cleveland. Do you know the wind in Cleveland? Not going to send my son there. Cleveland, I've been there once. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Super sick, by the way, if you guys end up actually going over there. But besides that, I didn't necessarily love my experience in Cleveland. Of course, I was 11 years old. So, was I 11? Yeah, I was 11. But I do think that left tackle is certainly on the table still. You can talk about Will Campbell here. You can also talk about Ashton Genty. And you might say, like, oh my God, Alex, like, roll my eyes, kiss my ass. Like, it's not going to happen. But let's look at history, right? Let's look at the past few drafts that have had top-tier running back talents that people think are on not even the same level as Ashton Genty. I continue calling back to Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. Jahmyr Gibbs was almost the selection at 6th overall. Jahmyr Gibbs ain't no Ashton Genty. I love Jahmyr. He's not Ashton Genty. And then Bijan Robinson goes at 8. Bijan Robinson was a lock top 10, right? The Eagles, if he were there, like, it fits the general profile of the Eagles. But speaking of the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, back when he came out, went to the Giants at number 2. So I don't think that it's necessarily the pick that I would go for, but I think I'd be doing a disservice by at least not bringing the idea up that Ashton Genty could go in the top 10. And especially with the idea of these quarterbacks not necessarily being a great class, I do think that I am going to receive the flack. I'm going to do what I think will happen. And the Browns have thrived on a solid running attack for an extensive period of time. Nick Chubb's up for a contract, coming off that leg injury. Not necessarily the same guy. It's okay to take quarterback in round 2. Honestly, go to free agency. You got some guys out there. Don't force a quarterback. Just don't do it. Don't do it when you have this quality of team with these quality of dudes. Like, I'm just saying, especially if Sanders is going to try to pull the Arch Manning thing. It's not the Arch Manning, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He's not going to pull a Manning on this one. So I'm not going to really stress the potential locker room concerns if it ends up being like that. And I do feel value, like I can get value at other positions down the board. You could also say the same about running back, but again, I highly emphasize you to understand before you have your initial gut reaction, look at what the NFL has done when they value running backs as highly as Ashton Genty or even a little bit less. They go in the top 10. It's going to happen. Pick number 6, though, for the Raiders. You guys have been asking for this. I'm going to put Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. I mean, there's the connections there. Sanders with obviously Tom Brady as well. We'll see what happens, but you need to go quarterback. That's a little bit different than the Browns, right? The Raiders have not had a history, essentially, of focusing heavily on running back production being a foundational piece of your success. You need to get a quarterback. Same thing with the Browns, but I do think that the strategy for success is going to be different between the franchises. At pick number 7 for the New York Giants. I mean, Ashton Genty is also coming off an 18 missed tackle force week. So, I mean, before you try to open your trap and try to trash Ashton Genty, it ain't going to work. For the Giants here at pick number 7, I just don't think that there's a quarterback that you can take here. There's not. My next guy is Drew Allar. And you guys detest it. That doesn't mean that it's not worth it, but I do think that there's a certain point where you're like, well, let's try to fix this team up a little bit in other areas. One of those could be a corner. I think that the cornerback class drops off significantly. And please, for the love of God, PFF, Trevor, I know that you've talked about these players before as well. Please put in guys like Azariah Thomas and Davison Igbinosun. Like, these guys need to be in here. Like, I don't understand this. But I also think that offensive line's pretty crucial. It really is. And honestly, I don't think Will Campbell is easy to pass on at this point. Let me know what you guys think. But Will Campbell moved to the right tackle. He might lack some certain length aspects, but I honestly think this dude's an absolute stud. I really do. Josh Simmons, I think, could be slightly better, but you know, he just finished being able to polish his mechanics at left tackle. Will Campbell, I feel, is a little bit more moldable. So we're going to take a deviant course here. I know it's going to piss some people off, but you know I love you. Let's see how we do in the second round. This is not a scripted mock draft, so you guys know how this rolls. Mason Graham's instantly my pick for the Dolphins at pick 8. Defensive interior pressure is always valuable, and since Christian Wilkins is gone, not necessarily there at the moment. At pick number 9 for the Tennessee Titans, could again look at that quarterback route. I'm going to opt against that. I think wide receiver certainly is on the board. I also think offensive tackle is, but offensive tackle also not great supply of them, especially the ones that are true offensive tackles. So I'm actually going to go after Tetairoa McMillan here. I think that since DeAndre Hopkins is gone, the role is perfectly open, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for them to thrive. At number 10, you got the New York Jets. And the New York Jets, you can go after tight end, you can go after defense interior, quarterback. I mean, I feel like the PFF actually got it right here. But there is one position that I don't think they valued enough, and that's defensive back. And they need a couple of them. Malachi Starks is that type of guy where he has the IQ, he has the range, he has the flexibility. He has everything you're looking for, pretty much. And the cornerbacks, again, my next guys, because Ben Morrison, we're going to be considering returning in this, and I should have, again, I forget to say it every time I start a video, but he's a true sophomore who got a season-ending injury. Most of the time, those guys like to return to school. You got NIL money, and then you're still really damn talented. But guys like Azariah Thomas, Davison Igbinosun, those dudes are guys that I really do believe in, and I just don't think that they're going to be the 10th overall pick, right? And again, you could look at the quarterback position, but I highly advise against it. Like, I did it for teams that are like unbelievably desperate. But again, it pains my heart to even do that. We're going to go after Malachi Starks. I really do think that continuing to build an elite secondary, which, to be fair, the Jets ended up drafting Jamal Adams, I think, at 6th. So this is far from out of the realm of possibility for the Jets organization to go after. At number 11 for the Dallas Cowboys, you traded somehow, some way, thinking that Jonathan Mingo was worth a 4th round pick. I don't know what the hell's up with that, but it shows how desperate you are to get a wide receiver. And Mingo, Will Mingo, but I do think that there's still a massive lack in deep threat capability on your team. Outside of, even CeeDee Lamb's not really the deep threat capability that you're looking for. I think that you look at Isaiah Bond and you don't think twice. He is really awesome. I don't really think there's many other players that have the combination of finesse and flash that Isaiah Bond has, and I think that is well worth the number 11 pick. Number 12, we got the Indianapolis Colts, and defensive back's always the route I go. I still might go that route, but let's look at what we have available to us. We got top-end offensive linemen still on the board, by the way. Haven't seen them slip in a while. You guys know how much I love to take offensive line, but I honestly think that defensive back's the way to go. And I'm going to stick my flag into the corner that I think deserves it. I think Davison Igbinosun's coming off a red-hot week, and he has the physical profile that this team looks for, this organization looks for. 6'2", 198 pounds, and you aren't beating him deep. So Jordan Hancock's going to be my placeholder for my number 18 player in the class, Davison Igbinosun. Pick number 13 for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is the perfect squad that will be looking right at Nick Scorton. There is rumors that you guys are going to be continuing to shop that edge market, and unfortunately didn't happen today. What happened today was a Khalil Herbert trade. So, yay. But, the Bears were kind of just keeping that dude on reserve. I do think that Nick Scorton might be one of the best options. I think that the best option would have been Malachi Starks being here, but he's not. You could go after Kelvin Banks and just try to put him in offensive line. I don't think that's a horrible idea. If we're going to be real here, like put Kelvin Banks at guard, that could be a really good option. I'm not going to do it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But we also put Kenneth Grant and pair him back up on the interior with what you guys already have there in Chris Jenkins Jr. And I love that. I do. So I think edge, you still might want to give one more year to Miles Murphy. So I'm going to go after Kenneth Grant there, KG. At number 14 for the Seattle Seahawks, offensive line is just super key. Calvin Banks is here. Let's not overthink it. At number 15 for the Rams, you guys know exactly the position and the player I'm going after for the Rams. I'm going after a left tackle for this team. They trade away Tre'Davious White, so there is a hole at corner on this team. Granted, it's not like Trey White was, Jesus himself, but you got Ursary, you got Simmons here. I think Simmons is a super stud. I think the Rams are looking for the long-term build of their franchise, and you just take the best player available. At number 16 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we're going after edge rusher all day, and we're going after the second best edge rusher. Actually, in my opinion, the best edge rusher, but the one with maybe less ideal physique because he's not 255 pounds, but he still plays like it. James Pierce Jr., perfect replacement for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Then we have the Niners at 17. This one is also really easy for me. You could look at defensive interior here with Walter Nolan because you just ended up trading at the trade deadline. I mean, I'm literally talking about this 22 minutes, and what? I started this 16 minutes in. Do the math, 6 minutes after the trade deadline. You guys just traded for a defensive interior for depth. Could be in the market for that. But Ariante Ursary is built to be a 49er. I am not going to let that dream fall away. At number 18 for the Chicago Bears, I'm going to be looking at potentially an edge rusher here, but we got to also evaluate the rest of the offensive line capabilities. And gotta be honest, I have kind of depleted it. Cam Williams is a guy that you certainly could evaluate here, but he's super duper raw. If Ariante Ursary were here, that'd be the dream. But I also do want to emphasize defensive interior because you got a guy like Walter Nolan, which again, PFF, please start adjusting. To be fair, Walter Nolan had a 20% pass rush win rate. He's down to 11.5. He's had a little bit of a slower past week or two, but you still got guys like Derek Harmon. Damn, Derek Harmon coming up hot with he used to be at 3% the run stuff rate. So good for him, man. Good for him. There's all these defenders that are actually doing a really good job at being able to boost their overall rates. So good job on them. But I think if you're stuck in this situation, bring back Darrell Taylor. You still need to have some extra punch in that edge core. And you got some really good options if you want to wait till round 2. But I just think it's too damn sexy to let Nick Scorton slip any further. This dude is an absolute freak of nature. Doesn't fit stylistically what I would go for, but we've depleted the options that I think would be more ideal. Go after Nick Scorton, who's 285 pounds, can be super flexible, and just be an absolute menace. At number 19 for the Denver Broncos, you guys know what I'm extremely attracted to here. You got Luther Burden. However, they were trying to shop Greg Dulcich. It looks like they're looking for a tight end. Let's change the narrative, and let's go after a tight end that I think Sean Payton would like, and that's one that's extremely versatile and very, very dangerous. Now, I'm looking at Tyler Warren right here. He's been phenomenal this year. He had over 200 yards versus USC. He was their entire offense. I think that at 260 pounds, he's going to be the more likely candidate out of him and Loveland to go to certain teams that are looking at him as more of an all-around tight end than just a receiving threat. At pick number 20 for the Arizona Cardinals, this is easy for me. This is going to be Jalen Walker, edge rusher out of Georgia. Could even play linebacker if you need him to, but this dude is just a freak of nature. 6'2", 245 pounds. I don't need to overthink it too much. It's just a damn good player. At pick 21 for the Chargers, a lot of really good choices here, but I think the most high likelihood option is to go after Colston Loveland. Simple, easy connection. Harbaugh loves his tight ends as well, and you're getting yourself someone who has obviously instant chemistry. Pick number 22, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Edge rusher is the easiest choice for this team. I do want to emphasize that Azariah Thomas should be on the table for it, but when you have LT Overton, Mikael Williams, you can't say no. You can't. It's just, you can't pass up on that. At 23 for the Green Bay Packers, just traded away Preston Smith, opening up a beautiful spot for LT Overton to slide on in at 283 pounds. Great physique as well. And that's literally the youth that you're kind of looking for, because Preston was getting older. You kind of got Rashawn Gary, and then you're kind of having some guys who are developing. LT Overton's been fantastic. Well deserved of a first-round pick there. Pick number 24 for the Baltimore Ravens. Honestly, I'm looking at Luther Burden here. You traded for Deontay Johnson, and Deontay Johnson is my comp for Luther Burden. Just saying. If at this point we want to take a little bit of a curveball approach, this makes sense. And you guys just traded for Trey White, right? I do think that you could be still in the market for a corner. Ben Morrison returning in this one. But I'm going to take a little bit of an alternate route. You guys like to continue pampering Lamar Jackson with more and more firepower. I think this is just a one-on-one fit. So go for Luther Burden. At pick number 25 for the Houston Texans, we're going offensive line here. We're not fucking around. Not at all. No, sir. And we're going after the best player, Alabama player as well. You guys love this. I love it. Let's just wrap the bow on this puppy. Pick number 26 for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if Howie could say no to Cam Williams. Here's the thing. Mekhi Becton last week had like a 94 offensive grade. Ridiculous. The highest of all linemen. So, apparently he loves being Kelly Green. But it's not going to be easy to pay this dude. You can't just pay a billion guys like all pro level salaries. Like, there's just a certain point why there is a cap on the cap. And I think that you guys are going to be looking for someone to play guard in the short run, which Steen definitely can. But, you guys are built on depth and also develop that long-term tackle. I think Cam Williams is perfect for this. He's perfectly built, NFL-wise, 6'5", 335. Probably could slim down to 325. But has that physical size that already works in that role, that Becton role. But unlike Steen, this is not going to be his permanent position. Cam Williams is going to be the guy who gets molded for the long haul for right tackle. And I just think Howie is going to do the curveball approach on this one. Defense is a very, very likely option, but I don't think you can say no to Cam Williams being that developmental guy. Even though Lane Johnson says he wants to continue playing for multiple years, there's just going to be a certain point where things are going to start tapping out, and you need that youth in there on that cheaper contract to be able to perform, and I think Cam Williams is perfect for that. At number 27 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mecca Buka, great choice. We ended up trading for freaking Preston Smith as well as Mike Williams, and we traded noticeable capital for Williams. We traded a 5th round pick, and it's like, why? Like, no one's trading that. Like, that's the thing. We normally don't get fleeced like that. We got fleeced in that trade. I do think that shows how badly we want a boundary receiver. And Emeka Egbuka would be kind of perfect for that if he played boundary receiver. I think because of that, we need to ignore this and try to be able to table it for another round. It just doesn't make very much sense for us to draft someone who plays primarily in the slot and say, hey, now, since you're so successful in the slot, we're kicking you back to the boundary where you were a couple years ago. It doesn't mean that you can't do it, but I think that, it's in there. I do think quarterback's still on the market, and you guys will see. I will be having a quarterback video coming out tomorrow or the next day. It's actually already recorded. I see it, and I'm terrified of the amount of editing I'm going to be doing. But Drew Allar's the guy. He is. You guys are like, oh, he performed poorly versus Ohio State. This is factoring in Ohio State. And as a matter of fact, if you guys want to watch the quarterback video tomorrow, I'm just going to commit to it. It's tomorrow. I read my exact scouting report from that Ohio State game. He is not the problem. Drew should be returning to school because he should be a top 10 pick. He's 20 years old. He's extremely moldable. Bring Russ back for a year. People are going to hate it. Haters going to hate, man. I'm going to be willing to take the flack. I am. Drew Allar's going to be the pick there. Jalen Milroe is not a first-round pick. I'm just going to be real. At pick number 28 for the Minnesota Vikings, let's get defensive interior help here. You got some great options on the table for you, but Walter Nolan's getting the most love right now. And you know what? Let's ride the train, man. Let's go after Walter Nolan to the Minnesota Vikings. The Commanders ended up trading a big trade. And let's see, did they trade the third and fourth round picks? I don't believe they did. No, they did not. So technically they traded both of these. I just want to make sure that this is up to date, which, I mean, to be fair, it's been less than a couple hours after they did this. Where the hell are the Saints at? Donde está? Nope, dumbass. There you go. And you guys ended up trading for, I know that you got a pick and return, but it just allows me to have clarity of mind. You guys are depleted on picks at this point now. for depth, but you guys end up getting Marshawn Lattimore when healthy is one of the best corners, and corner is a huge position of need for you. So you ended up solving a big issue if he can stay healthy, and I love that. So I'm going to be looking at edge rusher here pretty heavily. You could look at offensive tackle as well. You got some good players in here, but I just don't see any that are screaming except Josh Connerly, as well as Jack Nelson, like worth a first-round pick. And even with that, Josh Connerly could be kicked into guard. Jack Nelson might not be uber consistent at this moment, and I still love him, but again, you got to keep it 100 in here. So for the Commanders, I think going after the best player available is key. The best edge rusher available is JT Tuimoloau, in my opinion, or Kamen Rucker, or Kyle Kennard. Like, great group of players. You talk about Shamar Stewart, Princely Umami-Ellen, like great picks all around. But I'm a sucker for JT. Even versus Penn State, I didn't watch him versus Penn State. I just ended up seeing him just like continue to be really, really solid, especially versus the run. Like, even that 10.1% run stop rate doesn't show the fact that some of these run stops are from behind. He tracks them down from the other side of the field. So I think that's going to be really valuable. I know the Commanders are continuing to work on that defense. Dan Quinn's done a fantastic job, so they're going to continue doing that. At pick number 30 for the Buffalo Bills, another team, I think, let's just rock edge, man. Don't overthink it. You could look at a wide receiver here, but I think we have 2 picks in the next round where value is perfectly fine. You can go Emeka Egbuka all you want, but again, you're having the issue with the slot. I'm not going to force him to the outside. And it's Princely or Shamar. Let's go after Shamar here. Shamar is going to be getting that big hype, and Texas A&M doesn't develop guys properly. I think there's a lot of underrated potential here with Shamar Stewart, who's 290 pounds, but is just built differently. He's the best in terms of athleticism edge rusher that I've seen at 290. So pick 31, I might just run the table here with edge. Like, Detroit has been, like, you guys ended up trading today for an edge rusher as well, which, I mean, hey, power to you, dude. Power to you. You needed to go after edge. So, and actually, it was Darius Smith, too. So you're getting yourself a quality edge rusher there. I think this is just perfect for Princely Umami-Ellen. Let's run the edge train here, man. Princely needs a little bit more coaching and development in terms of that first step. But after that, this dude's a stud. And I just am personally uncomfortable with taking him much earlier because of that little development curve. But I do think Aiden Hutchinson, Zadarius Smith, could be able to unlock that with him. At number 32 for the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at defensive back, and they're in the market. They were lurking for their own star there in Marshawn Lattimore. Let's get him there on Marshawn Lattimore. Let's go Azariah Thomas. Placeholder is Fentrell Cypress, but my number 12 player, Azariah Thomas, big, physical, athletic. Just don't overthink it. So you got Igbinosun and and Thomas that are off the board. Those are both of my placeholders pretty much for the majority of the video. But continuing on at number 33 for the Patriots, you look at the best option here. I'm going to go after the true tackle between the 2 tackles I was highlighting. I'm going to be going after Jack Nelson. So we ended up going after Travis Hunter and now Jack Nelson, preparing Drake May for a much better sophomore campaign. At number 34 for the Jaguars went Will Johnson in round 1. We are going Josh Connerly here in round 2. Don't overthink it. Get the actual positions you need with the proper value that you get. At number 35 for the New Orleans Saints, we ended up going after edge with Abdul Carter in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I could be looking at interior offensive line or that right tackle spot. The question is, who has the right value? And the right value is pretty subjective. I would say Armand Membu is probably the next best thing. Blake Miller, really solid as well. Wyatt Milam, someone who does deserve some credit, though. That being said, I think that another receiver like Emeka Egbuka could pair up really well with Chris Olave for the future if Chris Olave continues to not get hurt, knock on wood. But we're going to draft Emeka Egbuka. At 35, it's worth the potential chance of him not working on the boundary and then working with everybody else to make sure it happens. Pick number 36 for the Bears. We ended up drafting Nick Scorton in round number 1. Let's look at offensive line here in round number 2. And honestly, I love Wyatt Milam at left guard. I really do. Like, look at this dude. He's been unbelievable this year. How do you have 0 pressures on the year? But he's just going to be a guard, so that's why I'm like kicking him there. But this dude's been fantastic this year. It's just, again, probably going to be more of that guard build. At pick number 37 for the Cleveland Browns, we took Ashton Jeanty in round 1. Oh, what happened? Quarterbacks are here in the second round? What? Yes, remember, quarterbacks exist after the first round, my friends. And you got Garrett Nussmeier and Jalen Milroe. The question is, which one do you like more? As a matter of fact, spoiler alert, they're graded the same for me. So the question is, do you believe you can work with Jalen Milroe the way that you can with Garrett Nussmeier? Can you imagine the running assault that you'll have with Jalen Milroe and Ashton Jeanty? I think it's worth the potential concerns that Jalen Milroe brings to the table as a passer. So test it out, see what happens, and don't regret it. Pick number 38 for the Raiders ended up going after Shedeur Sanders in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I think going after receiver is kind of a must. You got to do it. You got to do it. And if they were in Oakland, this would be like the instant pick for me. So I'd go Alec Iomaner. Guys, he runs in 1.89 yards per route run in an offense that throws like 3 yards a game. Like, this dude is fantastic. He does like everything right, and he just doesn't get any sort of reward for it. He's going to be one of those players, if he doesn't return to school, is going to get a ton of love in the NIL like trade market, so to speak. Not trade, but the transfer portal. And I think the Raiders need it. They need someone to be extremely reliable on the boundary, almost like a Devontae Adams type. Anywho, pick number 39 for the Giants. We're going to go after a quarterback here. We went after offensive line in round number 1. Oh, look at that. You get Garrett Nussmeier. I know I'm annoying. I know. I'm in an annoying mood right now. I already recorded an hour of content, okay? I'm a little bit high on the juice, so to speak. But Garrett Nussmeier goes and pairs up with Will Campbell once again. Super high ceiling player here. Super high ceiling. You're not going to get much worse than Daniel Jones. And it's somebody that, you need some time to just finally polish off everything. But those high-end plays are just ridiculous. Again, stay tuned tomorrow for my quarterback video. Pick number 40 for the Miami Dolphins. Went defensive interior round 1. Here in round number 2, I'm honestly quite open to a majority of these players, including Jonas Savania. A lot of people are showing some love for him, and I think it's time for us to do that. He's not going to play tackle for this team. He's going to play guard or center. Guard, though, because you don't need a center. Pick number 41 for the Tennessee Titans. So we ended up going after Tetairoa McMillan in round number 1. You could look at the quarterbacks here in round 2. Miller Moss is going to be returning to school. He ended up getting benched. That sucks, because you guys know I loved him. The next best quarterback for me, like for this team, is Cade Klubnik. I've had almost like a renaissance or epiphany for Cade Klubnik, but I'm not there with the second round love just yet. So I want to put that there. I want you guys to know I do understand that there is a potential concern at that quarterback position, but I do think edge rusher and tackle are key. Oh, tackle is just so bad this year, guys. It really is. It's just not good. I do think that we can look at that edge rush core. And, dude, can you imagine rocking some Kamen Rucker? I know that it's not like the biggest position to focus on, but this dude is just built differently. I mean, like he's just, I love Kamen Rucker. I really do. He's going to continue ascending my board. He might end up being a top 10 player, but Kamen Rucker ends up slipping here, and then you guys end up getting great value. For the New York Jets at 42, again, don't really like the quarterbacks that have slipped to this point. It's not, you don't always need a quarterback developing on your roster. It is what it is. I do think that tight end, though, is a position you need to go for. I don't like Tyler Conklin. I don't think he's the future. I think Harold Fannin is. So don't overthink it. Get one of the best players, especially after the catch in the draft. Pick 43 for the Dallas Cowboys. Running back's an easy one, but I mean, you got Quinshon Judkins here. We could just wait till the third round, right? I think defensive interior, like when you got all of these guys on the board, you can't say no. The Jets, it's very offensively focused, and we already addressed defense once. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers would be too happy if they just went defense. This is a little bit different. Deone Walker would be the highest likelihood selection, but I think Derek Harmon fits that Osa Odigizua role better than anyone, and he's improved so much this year, even coming out of Michigan State as a stud that he is. At pick number 44 for the Indianapolis Colts, we went after Davison Igbinosun in round number 1. I think going after a safety here, like you look at Kevin Winston on the table, but Nick Eamon-Wari, someone who I always go after for this team. Let's not do that. Let's take an alternate route. Let's be a little bit more exciting. We could look back at those linebackers. You got Jack Kaiser here, Barrett Carter, Deontay Lawson as well. A lot of good choices. Apart from that, I don't think quarterback is there. You said AR was off the table, which, respect for that. Don't know why you're not playing him, but, it is what it is. I really don't think there's too many areas of need for this team. Like, it is kind of, I might have to default back to going after safety. You could go after another edge, right? Like, there is that potential chance that, hey, we want to go after Kyle Kennard here because his value is just too damn good. You know what? Let me know what you think. I'm not going to do it this time. I will go the boring route, but let me know what you think of Kyle Kennard, because I think that would be a really good pick. I really do. So we're going to go after Nick Eamon-Wari here. Boring, but 6'3", 227, ball hawk, pick six specialist. Kind of lines up. Pick number 45 for the Bengals. We ended up going after Kenneth Grant in round 1, KG. But here in round number 2, I really actually wanted to go Nick Eamon-Wari for the Bengals. Could not do it. You could look at wide receiver potentially down the line. You traded for a running back. You could look at some offensive line talent here as well. Don't think that's off the table for you. You could look at cornerback talent as well. You got Siobhan Revell here, who's coming off an ACL tear. Let's take it for a test drive, man. Siobhan Revell, 6'3", 193. He slipped in this, but again, coming off an injury and from a lower end school, so to speak, for talent development, not impossible. At pick 46 for the Seattle Seahawks, who did they end up with in the first? Calvin Banks. Good for you. Good for you, man. Here in the second round, I really do like the idea of going safety. You could go after even another linebacker, but I think safety is where it's at. Getting a rangy one like Saab, Nwankpa. Nwankpa and Saab are like completely different players, but I mean, I love them both. I think those are going to be where you get your best return on investment. Kevin Winston's still out, man. I mean, that just sucks. That just sucks. I really want to be able to see him in action again. But to be real, I really like Xavier Watts. I really do. Like, Watts on this team with the range he has and the ball hawking ability, I'm going to roll the dice on him. We're going to go Xavier Watts here in the second. At number 47 for the Panthers, we ended up addressing quarterback in the first round, leaving us with a good amount of weapons here in the second for us to replace Mingo. Or we could go after edge. And you know what? Guess who's on the board? Kyle Kennard. We're not going to take too long to select that one right there. Weapons can be more plentiful down the line. Edge rushers, I don't really think so. Pick number 48 for the Bengals, Buccaneers. They have ended up going after edge already. I still think that they could try to address running back here with Quinshon Judkins, but you do have a good group of backup backs that don't really require that. So that's cool. But looking at other positions, I mean, I think linebacker still is a position you need to focus on. Harold Perkins not coming out in this one. Going to just highlight that ASAP because I really love him, and otherwise he'd be a first-round pick. You guys see my board. So I would say Tampa Bay is not easy to draft for. Like, they're just a really interesting case where I just don't feel comfortable. I mean, I honestly think Quinshon Judkins would not be bad because if you think about it, Sean Tucker, more that home run hitter. And then you look at Bucky, and he's more that one cut back. Quinshon is a combination of one cut and power, and he's like a 3-down back. I personally would think at 48, I'd roll the dice on that and then just keep a ton of tread on my running backs' tires, so to speak, as they go on. At 49 for the Niners, they end up going Arianti Ursary in the first. They're going corner here in the second. Again, Ben Morrison returning in this. I'm going to go Jadai Barron. This dude ended up popping off to me big time in one of the most recent videos I ended up studying him in. One of the most recent games versus Georgia. I thought he did a phenomenal job. So, definitely worth, especially when the Niners have so many guys up for contract, being considered there. At 50 for the Chicago Bears, we ended up addressing offensive line already with Wyatt Milam, as well as edge rusher. So we've addressed both sides of the line, Scorton and Milam. I think that we can get a little sexy here and go after a receiver because, to be fair, Keenan Allen's going to be gone, and he hasn't even been that great. The pretty key drop very recently that I'm not a big fan of. Ty Felton could be perfect for this. He's swift, he's nifty, but I don't see the physicality outside of Rome Odunze in the receiving core in terms of being a big and forceful receiver. And that's what Jaden Higgins brings to the table. He's right down the road. He's 6'4", 215, and he's just been an absolute monster. And just every single year, he's been getting better and better. Great yards per route run. He's been just extremely reliable. He's been the focus of this offense for, every single game. And he has yet to have like a legitimately bad game. Pick 51 for the Denver Broncos. Went after a tight end in round number 1. I'm going to potentially go after a receiver here in round 2. Now, they did end up signing Cooper to a long-term contract, but they also ended up trading away one of their edge rushers. So, with Baron Browning being traded away, I am actually going to look at Donovan Ezeuruwaku. I think that getting key playmakers on both sides of the ball is a great way to build a strong franchise. For the Cardinals, you guys ended up getting lucky. Defensive interior did not fly off the board the way I thought it would. And Dalen Walker and Tyleik Williams are the next guys on the board. I'm going to go after Dalen Walker here. He's a freak build, but he also is just very inconsistent, coming off a week with 0 pressures on 43 pass rushing reps. To me, that's not acceptable, but also you see the ceiling there with him. So I think that's why you can balance it out and take him here at 52. At 53 for the Los Angeles Chargers, I think we might see a small run on defensive interior because Tyleik Williams is here. It's very hard to say no to that. I think there is a noticeable drop-off after him as well. So let's go after Tyleik Williams out of The Ohio State University, a school that I don't really trust to develop pass rushers, but I do think they can get better in the NFL. Tyleik is just a great foundation for just being a high-floor run defender. At pick 54 for the Atlanta Falcons, I'm still going to be looking at corner for this team. Went edge rusher in the first. Ben Morrison not considered coming out in this. Tacario Davis, to be fair, could end up replacing Jesse Bates if he doesn't want to come back. I'm just going to be for real with that. I honestly think that's a move that I want to take a risk on if he can't play corner. He's going to be an elite tier safety. So we're going to be taking him right here. At pick 55 for the Packers, would have been a dream pick for me. Drafted edge rusher in the first with LT Overton. And at this selection, you could talk about going after someone like Emory Jones, who's super flexible. Armand Membu, who's super flexible. That could end up going to the interior, kind of what you guys have really focused on. But trying to see some other positions we could address. Like, you could actually just address offensive line again. I don't think that you need to, but this team is so stacked in terms of talent. Like, I already mentioned that it is a big drop-off. Like, Omar Norman-Lott's the next dude who I'd probably take outside of TJ Sanders. Damn, I didn't know TJ was going off like that. Shit. I know that he's been doing a good job, but I didn't realize it was to that degree. Like, he's been doing a phenomenal job. I actually might take him here. Let's do it. Let's have a good time. Let's rebuild that defensive front, man. TJ Sanders is unique, too. He's, 290? Like, he's a freak, man. You're having two dudes that are great athletes for their size, and TJ Sanders as well as LT Overton. At pick 56 for the Baltimore Ravens, we went after wide receiver in round 1. We are definitely going after offensive line here in round 2. I think Donovan Jackson as a guard is just going to be your highest floor bet. Don't play him at tackle, just play him at guard. Literally, yeah. Woo, he was not good that game versus Abdul Carter. But again, not many people have been good versus Abdul. At 57 for the Texans, I would have loved to have had TJ Sanders here. That's not the case. We drafted a guard in round number 1. I think a third defensive back is on the table here. And I'm thinking of the styles of back you have. You have Pitre, which Nwangpa is slightly similar. I would say Castro is closer to Pitre. I would say that Saab is very close to Bullock. I think that Nwangpa and Ransom are the two safeties. You could talk about Winston here as well, but Winston we just haven't seen in a hot second. Ransom and Nwangpa are the two that I think are closest to be able to complement all the roles. And Ransom is just a baller. It's just when he's not, when he's healthy, he's ridiculous. He just needs to be healthy. And he's been healthy this year. Knock on wood, that remains. I'm actually going to give him some love here. Lathan Ransom, I ended up saying within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage and in the red zone, he's the best safety in the class. Hands down. Even above Malachi Starks. This guy really has an X factor. It's just health and then after those 10 to 15 yards. Pick number 58 for the Philadelphia Eagles. We drafted a tackle in round 1. I already hear people yelling at me for it. It's okay. I love you guys for it. But we have some really good choices here. Now, we're going to try to replace Josh Sweat. So, you look at 6'1", 245, you're like, this could be Andrew Van Ginkel type, He's still getting above 25% pass rush win rate. I think that's something that we do need to factor in here. But Jack Sawyer is a really good talent. He's a very solid talent. and he's done a phenomenal job this year. I do think that he's a bit overrated. So the guy who I'd be considering here is more so Landon Jackson than anything. But I'm actually going to still go Josiah Stewart. I think that even though he's 6'1", 245, he's shown unbelievable ability to be able to rush the passer. And surprisingly, that hasn't stopped him in terms of his run defense efficiency. Pick number 59 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're still looking for some help in that receiving core, and we got plenty of it. You got Trey Harris here. You got Ricky White. I don't think you need much more. And I'm going to go after Ricky. I love Ricky White, man. I mean, I think this dude is just unbelievable. He has a 3.34 yards per route run after going through 2 different quarterbacks and having a lot of struggles as well, some struggle weeks. Oof. I forgot about Ty Felton, though. That's hard to choose between, by the way. Ty Felton ended up starting out this year unbelievably red hot. Ricky White, like both these dudes are top-tier wide receivers for me. You can't go wrong. I will say I think the Steelers will lean more towards Ty Felton than Ricky White. Just based on like what I'm thinking about the style of receiver you guys want outside of George Pickens, and you got like Mike Williams there as well. To be fair, both these guys are pretty much 6'1", 6'2", 190. But Ty Felton is just surgical. He is surgical. Ricky White, no, fuck, we're going to go Ricky. Ricky also adds on the special teams aspect, and I do know that Pittsburgh loves their special teams play. Ricky White had 2 blocked punts. So that might be a difference maker because the talent level as a receiver is so close. Ricky White's going to be an instant contributor. Leaving the Bills at 60. And you know what? If you didn't like Ricky White to the Steelers and want Ty Felton, let's just swap them. I don't care. Because, again, there's so little separating them. But I also think that Amari Cooper's role could be taken long-term by Ty Felton. So continuing on 61 for the Commanders. We drafted edge in round number 1 with JT Tuimoloau. We got corner now addressed as well. And remember, you sent a 3rd and a 4th round pick. So this is the next pick until I think the 5th round. So use it wisely. And how can we use this wisely? Looking at it, probably a right tackle for the future. Like, I think that getting offensive line talent's not a bad choice at all. You could go Emory Jones here as a guard because he has instant chemistry with your quarterback. But you also could look at the receiving room. And you look at Jalen Royals here, and you're like, damn. I mean, technically, I think Scary Terry's getting up there at a 30. Jalen Royals is somebody who, he was like at like a 1 yard per route run, and he's gotten better every single week. He's had 188-yard weeks where he's just been absolutely dominant. On his career, over 60% in terms of his contested catch rate. It was at like 20% at the start of the year. It's already back up near 40. You know what? Screw it. We're going to go Jalen Royals here. At pick number 62 for the Buffalo Bills, now we're going to roll the dice on Kevin Winston that I think will balance out well with Cole Bishop for the long run. Bottom line, the Bills have now gotten, Umar Mielen, Shamar Stewart, Kevin Winston, as well as Ty Felton. At number 63 for the Detroit Lions, I'm going to be looking now at the offensive line. You guys know it's kind of the same thing every time, but Tate Ratledge is just the definition of consistent. The only reason he didn't play those games because he wasn't healthy, not because he wasn't good. This guy's rock solid. You know what you're getting with him. Don't overthink it. Just get yourself a quality player. And at 64 for the Kansas City Chiefs, we took a corner in round number 1. Not Fentrell Cypress, but Azariah Thomas. And now, here at pick number 64, I think defensive interior still could be a good position to look at. You got Aeneas Peebles here, who has been fantastic this year as a pass rusher. He's 290, though, so it's like, you can go Dante Corleone. Absolutely. You can go Omar Norman-Lott, for sure. You could look at the tight end core. I think that's a little bit, like, the next guy I'd be going for is Jake Brenningstool. I think this dude's a beast. Gets very underrated. People don't love him enough, but, it is what it is. But I also do think you could look at Amarian Hampton, who's coming off a 5-touchdown week or a 4-touchdown week. That wouldn't be a bad choice at all for this team. Oh, it's not easy. You could also look at offensive line, though. And you got guys like Membu, Miller. You could look at even Marcus Bowe, friend of the show. That rhymed. That was funny. But he's my number 37 player. Actually, I'm going to go Armand Membu for this team. First off, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri. And then you also add on top of that how damn talented Membu's been. He's improved so much this year that it's not even funny. I mean, he really has taken that step up, and he can play a guard role as well if you don't want to keep Trey Smith. So it gives you that flexibility to have that comfort as well. So you go Membu, and you end up going Azariah Thomas. That's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.